Hey folks, welcome to another day, another unboxing. Yes, this is a OnePlus 9 time. I've got both of them here, OnePlus 9 and a OnePlus 9 Pro. Super excited. We've all been looking forward to this, so let's dig in. I'm gonna unbox these really quickly and then walk you through the differences and specs. So let's start with the 9 here. So this is the box, as you can see. There's some IMEIs at the bottom, but you get the idea. Let's open it up. Hasselblad. Okay, so we've got the phone here, and the first thing you notice, yes, wireless charging. Haha, at least in Europe and the US, so be aware of that. Next, we have a little divider here that has a bunch of stuff in it, so let's have a look at that. I think the SIM removal tool just fell out. And now let's have a look at the rest of the stuff. There's a sticker even. There we go. That's it for the box, so there is no case included. Stickers, SAR values, nobody cares. Quick start guide, we do care. Warranty, we don't care. So let's take a look at the more important things. First, the welcome letter. Same as always, there's the SIM removal tool slot. Here we go. I'll leave it up for you to read. It's pretty much the same from Pete Lau. This is the new OnePlus phone. It is all yours. Woohoo! All right. Then we got the quick start guide, which hopefully has some cool stuff in it. Multiple languages, illustrations. Cool. And then we have a 65-watt charger here, because yes, this has Warp Charge 65T, so this is 65 watt USB Type-C. This is probably the same brick as was on the OnePlus 8T, meaning it also charges up to 45 watt with PD, so you can use this to charge your MacBook or your laptop or tablet or whatever, or your iPhone, anything. That's pretty cool. All right, now we've got USB Type-C to Type-C cable, and I think that's it for the content of this box, folks. All right, let's have a look at the other box. OnePlus 9 Pro. Same thing, you know, IMEIs in the back, you know, la la la. Okay. Dun, 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 dun. Nothing inside. I do like this, so that's cool. Here's the phone, also with IMEIs in the back, also with wireless charging. And we've got another divider here. It looks like very much the same layout as before, right? Let's pull on this. Oh, there goes the SIM tool again. And got this, and pull this out and the rest comes out. Woo! All right. No case in here either. So we've got the SAR values. Do not care. We've got the stickers. We've got the welcome letter. The quick start guide and safety information. Let's have a look at the quick start guide. I bet you it's exactly the same, but with different illustrations. And then of course the welcome letter is going to be the same as well. That SIM tool just didn't want to stay in place on either of these, huh? Here you go. Same letter, I presume. Okay, so charger is also the same, 65 watt. Warp 65T, super fast charging, dual cell. That's how they managed to charge 2 batteries at the same time. Makes sense. Cool. Also supports PD, which is great. And then here's the USB-C to USB-C, right? Nothing new here. And now let's look at the phones. Okay, as you can see, they're very similarly sized this year. There's not as much of a difference in size as there was last year. So that's the first thing you notice. Let me open these and remove the IMEI sticker so we can continue. So there's one, and there is two. And two. Okay, here we go. Ooh, shiny, 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 isn't it? So let's look at these two phones. Small difference in size, and a lot of that has to do with the difference in display size. Let me turn them both on. Here we go, OnePlus logo. So the OnePlus 9 is on my right, the OnePlus 9 Pro is on my left, okay? The 9 has a 6.55 inch display. It's a 1080p panel, refreshes at 120 Hertz. It's OLED, of course. The OnePlus 9 Pro has a 6.7 inch display that also refreshes at 120 Hertz, but it's Quad HD, 1440p, and this is a variable refresh rate from 1 Hertz up to 120 Hertz, whereas this, I think, is probably just fixed to 120 Hertz. So that's the difference. Another difference is that the Pro does have curved edges. In fact, this is the exact same display we just saw on the Oppo Find X3 Pro, which I will put a video link up here for. Same display. Remember, BBK Group, these two companies share technology, so they're sharing the displays. There's going to be more sharing of technology you see in a second. This display, though, looks very similar to the OnePlus 8T display. Bezels are reasonable, especially on the bigger one. There's very little. There's a punch hole in the top left corner on both of these phones for the front-facing camera. It's a 16 megapixel f/2.4 with 1 micron pixels, Sony IMX471. Under the hood, you have a Snapdragon 888 on both of these, and you can get both of these in 8 gigs or 12 gigs of LPDDR5 RAM and either 128 or 256 gigs of UFS 3.1 storage. So identical across the board, identical for the chip, Snapdragon 888. That's pretty exciting. The other thing that's identical with these is the battery. It's 4,500 milliamp hour on both of them, and the fast charging at 65 watt dual cell fast charging. Now, there are differences between the Pro on the left here and the regular on the right in terms of wireless charging. The phone on the left, which is the OnePlus 9 Pro, supports 50 watt warp charge wireless, which is pretty amazing. Whereas the OnePlus 9 here on my right supports 15 watt wireless charging in Europe and the US. It's not available in all markets with wireless charging. So that's one of the differences here on these two phones, but the battery size are the same, which is interesting. Now, there's also differences in design. This is an aluminum and glass phone, the OnePlus 9 Pro, where the OnePlus 9 is got a polycarbonate frame and a glass back, very much like the OnePlus Nord last year. It's a bit of a downgrade, and I'm surprised they did that. So, you know, that's a little disappointing, frankly, but hey, keeps the prices down, I guess. All right, let's talk about cameras. Let's start with the OnePlus 9 Pro, because this one's super important and exciting. Both are Hasselblad branded, and there's a collaboration here. We're not quite sure to which extent that is, but I think a lot of it has to do with color science and making sure that it looks good. And at this point, I'm not sure that involves hardware too much. So the OnePlus 9 Pro has 4 cameras in the back, okay? There is a main sensor, which is a Sony IMX789. This is a successor to last year's Sony IMX689 on the 8 Pro. And it's a 48 megapixel sensor here with an f/1.8 lens. And it's got 1.12 micron pixels, which means that they get pixel bin 4:1 for 2.24 microns, which is pretty big. On paper, a lot of the specs are very similar between this sensor, the 789, and last year's sensor, the 689. But obviously, the emphasis here is on color accuracy and color balance. And even though Hasselblad had some say in this, I think that the sensor has probably better color rendition, faster autofocus, and things like that versus last year's. So that's exciting. OIS on the main sensor, of course. Now, the ultra-wide camera is directly taken from the Find X3 Pro from Oppo. It is the Sony IMX766, which is a 50 megapixel sensor, f/2.2 with autofocus, which means that you can do macro photography with the ultra wide, which is like the 8 Pro did last year. I'm very excited about this because having a special macro lens just doesn't make sense. Having it part of the ultra wide makes a lot more sense, especially if it has autofocus. So this 50 megapixel sensor is pretty bonkers, and I expect some pretty high quality ultra wide results here. Now, the other thing is you have 2 more lenses. One of them is a telephoto. It's a 3.3 times optical zoom. It's got 8 megapixels, 1 micron pixels, and f/2.4 aperture with OIS. So, you know, it's like a pretty bare bones telephoto, but it's nice to have a telephoto. So I'm welcoming it here, especially with OIS and a 3.3 times optical magnification. Also, I didn't mention, but that 50 megapixel ultra wide is 1 micron pixels. So, you know, they get bin 4:1 for 12.5 megapixel output. It makes sense. Pixel binning is real. The final lens is a 2 megapixel monochrome, and that is just, you know, to be pretty, basically. It's used for monochrome photography, to enhance monochrome photography. So they say, yeah, it's gimmicky. Seems like a sticker cam to me. You got a dual LED, dual color flash here, maybe a color sensor, and of course a laser autofocus depth sensor right there. So that's it in terms of imaging on the 9 Pro. So what do you give up on the 9 then, right? All right, well, so not too shabby actually. There's 3 lenses on the 9. There is a main sensor, which is last year's Sony IMX689 from the OnePlus 8 Pro. So that's the same main sensor as last year's 8 Pro. It's slightly detuned versus the one on the 9 Pro, obviously. But the biggest omission here, at least I can't find it anywhere mentioned, is that no OIS on this main sensor. So I think they're saving money here, and this is really bad because I think that even the Nord last year had OIS on its main sensor. So that seems like a step backwards, especially if Hasselblad's involved. Now, the ultrawide is identical to the one on the 9 Pro. It's that brand new 50 megapixel Sony IMX766 with the autofocus, so it can do the macros up to 4 centimeters, 1.5 inches. Yeah, that's good news here for sure. Again, f/2.2, 1 micron pixels on the ultrawide, and 1.12 micron pixels, pixel bin 4:1 with f/1.8 on the main. Now that third lens is a sticker cam. It's the 2 megapixel monochrome that's also on the 9 Pro, so nothing too exciting here. We also have a dual color, dual LED flash here, but no other things in terms of like laser autofocus sensor. So my biggest concern here is the lack of OIS on the main sensor, and of course the lack of telephoto. But ultimately, if you look at these two phones, the big differences are the display and the camera systems, especially the main camera. The 9 Pro has a telephoto that's missing on the 9, and the 9 Pro has a metal frame, which is polycarbonate on the 9. Also, the 9 Pro has an IP68 rating, which the 9 does not have. So that's the biggest differences. Wireless charging speed difference, 50 watt warp wireless versus 15 watt Qi wireless standardized. All right, so let's walk you through the edges. Let's start with the 9. All right, you've got here on the right-hand side the little notification slider. You've got the power lock key, nothing else. You can see there's no antenna bands, hence the polycarbonate. You got speakers. Both phones have stereo speakers, so that's exciting using the earpiece at the top. Speaker, USB-C, primary microphone, SIM tray, dual SIM, no micro SD support here. On the left-hand side, you've got the volume rocker here. On top, you've got a secondary microphone, and that's it for the tour of this phone, all right? Now, let's have a look at the 9 Pro. So the 9 Pro, let's look at the right-hand side, has the alert slider, of course. It does have a power lock key, some antenna bands. Here on the bottom, you've got a speaker, right? Stereo speakers again. You've got the USB-C port, primary microphone, and of course, the SIM slot, dual SIM, no micro SD again. On the left-hand side, you've got the volume rocker, right? Not too shabby. Now on top, you've got a secondary mic, some antenna bands, and that is it in terms of their design. So there you go, folks. OnePlus 9 Pro, OnePlus 9, very exciting. Let me put them on top of each other so you can compare their sizes. Both have very similar camera pods. One is slightly shorter than the other and slightly narrower, maybe. I don't know. They're about the same in terms of depth. Yeah. So there you go. This is the OnePlus 9 series, at least the 9 and the 9 Pro. Stay tuned. I'll have more content on the podcast about these phones, obviously. And check out my review on Hot Hardware, where I'll be talking about these phones. Yeah, like, subscribe, tell your friends, comment in the comments below. Click the notification bell. Let me know in the comments, which one would you pick? I don't have pricing as the time I'm making this video. So if I do get prices, I will put them up right here. 9 Pro at the top, 9 at the bottom, so you have an idea. Of course, pricing will determine a lot of whether you should pick one or the other. So shout out in the comments. Let me know what you think. And then finally, remember, this is a compliment to my podcast, mobiletechpodcast.com. Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Pocket Casts, and Spotify is where you can find us. Please subscribe and tell your friends and join the party. And that's it, folks. I hope you enjoyed this detailed unboxing and stay tuned for more content. Cheers, everybody.